Hello, everyone, and welcome to Game Over Ottawa. Damian Smith joined alongside Alex Adams, writer for Sportsnet. And man, the Sens are great right now. What can I say? This team is hot. 5 wins in a row. This team is doing pretty amazing.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Damien. Yeah, they're playing really well. I think this was a really good game, especially considering the circumstances, right? Like they basically fly across the country on a day's rest, playing against a bad team. You can kind of get let down, and I thought for the most part they played really, really well. I thought their forecheck was really impeccable. They had a bunch of guys, I think all four lines were very effective. Maybe they could have been a bit better on the power play until David Perron scored a kind of fluky goal at the end. But overall, I think this team is really turning into the team that, I think for many years, Sens fans and coaches
Yeah.
and management expected from this team. And I think a lot of credit goes to the players. I think Travis Green is, if this team continues to play this way and finishes even top three in the Atlantic, which is crazy to say. That's where this team is right now on merit. I think we're going to have a conversation about him and maybe a Jack Adams, maybe at least nomination. So overall, a really good team effort, and I think they're starting to score a little bit. They have 5 goals in they scored 5 goals in their last 3 games. In each of the last 3 games, and overall, they're really looking like a wagon, as people say.
Yeah, and I think they are 2 points back to the Leafs right now, which is insane to think about because we'll touch on this a little bit later on. The last time you came on was just over 2 months ago. It was I think December 1st or December 2nd, and they were against the Anaheim Ducks. And back then we were not in a playoff spot. I think we were around 500, but that was right after that really bad home stretch against Vegas, against Edmonton, against Vancouver, and that's when it kind of started to pick up again. And who thought we'd be having this conversation now, where the Sens genuinely because I feel like every game they can win, and it's not me being a delusional, hopeful fan, right? You're seeing the way they're playing out there, and they are absolutely dominating these games as of late. This is a road game against Nashville. I mean, they're not the greatest team, but out shooting the Predators by a fair margin, and they come out with a very impressive win, right? I want to nitpick the game at the end of the day, but this team, there's not a whole lot to criticize right now, right? The easy one is maybe the Hamonic penalty at the end of the second,
Yeah.
where eventually that ends up giving the Predators a 2-2 tie and gets them back into the game. But overall, right, there's not a whole lot to critique here.
No, I mean, I think, in every game you're gonna have defensive breakdowns. There's a couple times, right? Like Shabbat on the power play, I forget who on the Predators went in on a breakaway, could have changed the game and the dynamic of the game. But overall, they were very good defensively. I thought Sanderson was, he scored the beautiful goal, and, and you can see the reel of him doing the crossovers at the blue line to evade checkers and then launching it through a screen top shelf. But overall, they were really good defensively, and I think that's, you talk about this team, expecting to win every game or kind of being in every game. And, when you only give up 2, 3 goals, you're gonna be in every game, right? And to begin the month, they weren't able to score, right? I think Amazon had the stat where since January 9th, the team is 0-3-1 when they don't score and 9-0 when they do score. Make it 10-0 now, right? And so that's just
Insane.
like basically when they score, they win. And when they don't score, obviously you're not going to win. So I think the defensive prowess of this team is really on display. I think Michael Amadio played a really good game. Brady Tkachuk made a really good defensive play in the first period to track back or maybe the second period to track back and cut off a chance for Nashville. So their best players are playing well defensively, right? And
Hmm.
they have enough talent to outscore teams, to punish teams. And if you look at the stats, and Travis Green would remind you, I think they're at least heading into this game, they're second last in terms of shooting percentage at 5-on-5, right?
Yeah.
So that, someone has to come second last and last in shooting percentage, but you think for a team this talented that they're not going to be that low on the totem pole, and I think now we're really seeing this team emerge into a really good hockey team, and it's really nice to see.
Yeah, they always had the talent, but I think they touched on it a lot tonight. And this Amazon Prime broadcast, what they got going right here, is very nice to see. Think we're very spoiled with TSN, but sometimes it's nice to just get a little bit of a shakeup from time to time to see what people are saying about the Sens on the outside markets. And I guess Prime is, like John Forsland, right? He's always been a Canadian, or sorry, an American broadcaster, and it's nice to hear his voice and have him talk about the Sens in a good way too, right? And you saw that in the third period when they were breaking the Sens defensive performance down. They were really impressed. Like you're hearing Thomas Hickey and John Forsland and all the people on the panel just raving about the Sens, which is an awesome thing to do. Let's just walk through the game, though, I guess. First period, not really a whole lot goes on. Shots are 8-8, no goals, but that's ideally a perfect road period because Nashville is that's a tough barn to play in. I haven't been in the building before. I've been in the city, but I can imagine that if you're a younger player, like if you're Cole Reinhardt, you're stepping into that lineup tonight, you're probably maybe not nervous, but you don't know what to expect. And I know Nashville has been pretty bad this year. Actually, just bad, straight up. Anything that you saw in that first period that you liked from the Sens? Because overall they were, so-so, but that's fine. I'll take it.
Yeah, I
So-so.
mean, Forsberg had to make a couple nice saves, but I mean, that goalie interference, I mean, I'll just go on
Yeah.
a little bit of a tangent because, one, I don't understand how that was goalie interference. Batherson gets cross-checked into Saros and then the puck goes in. Like, it's not, he tries to get out of the crease and I don't know, like, why that's not goalie interference. And like Dean Brown, put out a tweet like nobody knows what goaltender interference. That's the problem, and I
Yeah.
think he has a very good valid point. But the other thing that just really befuddles me is so you review it for goalie interference and you deem it to be that it was goalie interference, and then Travis Green can challenge it. Like, why are we doing it twice? Like, if
Mm-hmm.
you've reviewed it for goalie interference, why is reviewing it again? Like it shouldn't take 8 minutes, right? I think and somehow they got the call wrong twice. So yeah, I think the simplest rule is just it does the forward kind of evade the goaltender, or is it incidental? And if it's incidental, the goal stands, and if it's not, then obviously it's goal interference. And I think when you watch that play, I don't think you say, "Wow, Batherson just rammed into Saros,"
No,
and
he got pushed.
he was at the side of the net, which he's allowed to be at. He shoves the puck in his motion. He obviously hits the goaltender, but not enough. It doesn't. That's not why Saros falls in. He now leaves the 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 blue paint slightly to the left and then gets cross-checked in the back and falls into Saros and the puck goes in. So I don't know. But I think it's pretty obvious when it's incidental and essentially when you're not shoved in or when you start and create the contact. And I just don't know how Batherson did it on that play and why it wasn't a goal. And even more, just completely at a loss for words is why there needs to be two challenges
Yeah.
or two reviews. Sorry.
Yeah. And but you got to flip it on the other side too. Sure, the Sens maybe were like a little bit upset, but the good thing that this team has going for them, and I've said this so many times this year, but they're not getting too high and they're not getting too low. They're not letting one little play like that dictate the rest of the game. And I think in past years they had done that, maybe not on purpose, but they just hadn't realized that there's so many more minutes of playing hockey and you can still win the game. And you can't really have that one call go against you and feel like you're cursed. because that is a loser's mentality when you play in pro sports at the end of the day. So yeah, I mean, Sens 0-0 after 20 minutes of play. Not bad. You'll take it on the road. And then eventually the Nashville Predators open up the scoring in this game. And we know the stats with the Sens when they score the first goal. It's pretty much wraps. They got the win in the bag basically. On the other side, it's not perfect, but it's not the worst like it has been in past years. But Philip Forsberg gets a nice back and forth play from Roman Josi, kind of tucks it by Forsberg. You can't really fault Forsy too much on that play. Stützle, I saw it coming back the other way because Josi was the trailer. Stützle was with one of the defensemen, and
Yeah,
Stützle,
with Zub.
yeah, was Zub, and he was too aggressive helping Zub because Zub should have had a man there, and Stützle should have been looking for the trailer because originally it was a 2-on-3. But yeah, I mean, Philip Forsberg, man, is so good. That's one of the more underrated players in the game. You can't really fault Anton Forsberg for not stopping that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think as you said, Stützle and Zub get crossed up, and then obviously it leads to Forsberg getting, a great pass past Jake Sanderson's stick, and then he makes a really nice move in tight to squeeze the shot 5-hole underneath Forsberg's pad. So I think overall, it's a miscue, it's a miscommunication, but hockey's fast. That happens. It's a breakdown, but it's also something that you can easily amend, and it happens sometimes in hockey. And fair play to the Sens where they regrouped immediately, right? And
Yep.
and in a couple minutes, I think Stützle just had that wonderful, got a good pass in transition, beats his defender, and then Adam Gaudette with really good hands shoves it in. And once they got that goal, you really felt okay, they're back in it. They kind of withstood it because they had been carrying the play. And then obviously the Sanderson goal was just really beautiful, just the way he's learning to kind of create room for himself, shooting the puck more, which talking to him a bit, he's really tried to emphasize that a little bit. So it was just a really good kind of quick, 5 minutes, and they really dominated that second period, obviously having over 20 shots, and they were just really good at getting in the cycle, kind of getting in behind the Nashville defense and making them kind of just wearing them out, right? Coming wave after wave. And I think that's when the Sens are really playing at their best, is because right now, in my opinion, they're not that fast of a team
Hmm.
outside of Stützle and obviously Norris is out. You have Kachuk, Giroux, Perron, Maude, like they're not very fleet-footed.
No, that's for sure.
The way dominate possession, dominate the puck, and create chances is by getting in behind the defense and just grabbing the puck and just rimming around the boards. And that's what those guys are really good at. So I think it was a really good second period, one of their best periods of the season.
The Sens outshot the Predators 22-12 in the second period. That was the difference basically in the shot totals this game because the first period were 8-8, 22-12 for the Sens in the second, and then 9-7 for the Sens in the third. So that was the difference, and the Sens fortunately head to the second intermission with a 2-1 lead. However, Travis Hamonic takes a penalty very late with around 15 seconds left. That's one of your penalties that you kind of want to take back because at the time of the game, right? You got to calculate your risks, and I think he hooked. I think it was Nyquist
Yeah.
on, and Nyquist was in the neutral zone, and I don't know. I just don't think that was a penalty you needed to take, and the reason why I'm mentioning it right now is because the Predators eventually do tie the game with a tying goal from Jonathan Marchessault. So once again, a great opportunity for the Preds. They kind of work it up high. Sanderson pinches a little bit too high near the blue line, and then that puts the puck down low for O'Reilly, who feeds Jonathan Marchessault in the slot. Tough one to stop there. However, though, 5 minutes later, as we come out of the TV timeout. That happened out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting a goal right away.
Mhm.
They were still kind of transitioning from the commercial. Um, Pinto wins the draw. It goes up high. Batherson swings it over to Shabbat. Maybe sort of a set play.
Yeah.
Potentially there. Shabbat takes the shot. Pinto buries it. Wide open net. Those are the goals you need to take advantage of, especially against a bad team in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, maybe going back just quickly to the PK, like they have a zonal coverage, right? So they basically have a
Mm-hmm.
box. And the problem is that you're not really on a man. And that's what happened with Sanderson is there was just like a tiny bit of miscommunication. He jumps up, Greg's there too, and then you have bang bang 2-0 essentially. And so I don't love the kind of that is like the approach, but that's the approach Travis Green has, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's like you just want everyone to shoot kind of outside from the outside. No one gets inner shot chances. The problem is that if it breaks down, then it's basically an NHL version of a tap in. But the PK's been awesome. They had scored three shorties in three straight games. Pinto almost scored late in the second period. So even without Josh Norris, I think their PK looked pretty good outside of the one mistake, but that happens. But yeah, I think credit to Pinto, but I think what was really good about that goal is it was, obviously it seemed like a set play, but it was like a greasy goal, right?
Yeah.
And I think the first three goals were just kind of, I don't know what the right terminology is, but kind of like old school hockey goals, right? Drive to the net, bang home a rebound on the Gaudette shot. Sanderson is like just get guys in front, screen the goalie, launch a
Mm-hmm.
shot, goes top shelf. And then even on Shabbat, it's like, okay, just drive the net, take a shot, have guys in front, and Pinto bangs it home, right? And it seemed like before, when the Sens were struggling to score, before maybe the last three games, it was a lot of perimeter, right? It was like shooting, kind of with no one in front, no one kind of banging home rebounds, not deciding not to shoot, trying to make the perfect play, right? And now they've got a couple goals in them, and now they're feeling a bit more confident, and now they're like, screw it, like let's just, get as many shots on goal. And I think sometimes you need to chase quality in a chance too. Like it's not always the best idea just to shoot, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think what this team was struggling with was that they were chasing quality way too much over quantity. And I think now we're seeing it kind of come closer to the mean, and normalize a little bit just in terms of hockey, wise for like normal players shooting the puck just a bit more. And now, they're reaping the rewards.
Yeah, I mean, because I talked about this on the defensive side of the puck too, right? If you have the defensive side of the puck kind of locked down and your team is in sync, then your talent, when it comes to the offense, you don't need to oversimplify it. Because if you already have all this natural talent, you have Tim Stützle, a third overall pick, who's your first line center. You have Brady Tkachuk, who is naturally going to be great in front of the net. You have Drake Batherson, who oozes talent. Like, people don't talk about how good of like how pucks like his puck skills are tremendous. His shot is great. He doesn't use it as much as he should. You have Claude Giroux, who I don't even think he played he when he was drafted into the NHL, he had only played 1 year in the queue and he had like over 100 points. And then obviously he has over 1,100 points. So this team has so much talent on the top end of it. As long as they just sort of play the right way and get those, those dirty goals, the garbage goals like you were talking, this team's going to do well. So, yeah, and I mean, 29 wins, show for it, and I think they're playing the right way so far. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the David Perron goal. What did you see on that tripping play? Trip? Do we call it a trip?
You know what? I was watching the game with my dad just at home,
Yeah.
and I saw the play. Like, I forget which Nashville player got or fell down. And I was like, when they didn't call a penalty, I'm like, wow, the Sens really got away with one.
Yeah, you thought.
And then I looked at the replay, and I'm like, he legitimately just fell
Yeah.
down.
Yeah,
He
he
didn't,
did.
he didn't get tripped.
Hmm.
So Wes McCauley got one thing right tonight. Yeah, it wasn't a penalty in my like. He grabs him a little bit, but he falls down without
Yeah.
stick tripping him. He just kind of falls on on his own accord. So actually the right call.
Yeah.
And then Perron just the right kind of move. Like he sees that he has him and Kachuk. He tries to kind of pass it in front. It hits Yossi's head and goes in. But again, that's the kind of greasy goal that he needed. He said at post game that I'll bring out the quote, but it's bad when your kids start chirping you about scoring um, after going, the first 14 games without a goal. So, and then he actually talked about how in French that it was kind of full circle that he scored with Kachuk on the ice because
Yeah.
he had for a couple years set up Kachuk's dad Keith
Hmm.
in St. Louis when Perron got into the league. So kind of cool moment for Perron there, and for a guy who, he's great to be around, great
Hmm.
guy. Um, but he was talking to us last week just about how, obviously with his, daughter getting sick, and then, he hurt his foot and was out. It's just been super stop start, right? And he really felt like he couldn't really get his like sea legs underneath him.
Yeah.
And I think he set up Greg's goal a couple games ago, but I thought tonight he was really good, just great along the boards, really he made a really good kind of intercept of the puck in transition that stopped a Nashville odd man rush. He was just really good tonight. I think him playing along with Brady really worked at times, and credit to him. I think if he can on the power play, he's a weapon. He has a really good shot. Missed a really good chance in the first period. Just overall, I think he brings leadership with this team needs, and just a little bit of a nose for the net and know how to score some goals.
Yeah, because he also picks up an assist tonight. It's nice to see him get going because I mean that's $4 million on your cap. You need more from him, obviously, offensively. He's a good board player. I don't know if people talk about him being slow. I don't really see it that much. I think he's average
I mean,
speed.
he called himself slow.
Yeah.
He talked to us,
Hmm.
I forget, sometime last week, and he said, I'm a slow guy, so it has to be about winning puck battles along the boards, and kind of that's how I'm going to be effective. So
Hmm.
I don't think he doesn't look like like me out there trying to skate with NHL,
Yeah.
but
Same here.
he isn't very, he's not the fastest guy, and never has been. Like that hasn't been part of why he's been a effective player. It's been all the other things.
But like the Sens haven't needed players like him in the lineup, a guy who can chuck out there for 14, 13, 12 minutes a night and have them play it effectively. And I'm not talking about a hustler, like a guy who's going to go out there and hit everything, but someone who can put pucks in the right area, who can pitch in some offense, and you can kind of throw them out in a lot of situations. I mean, the thing is about this team is that right now, like there's so many different lines, and I can't even think of any off the top of my head because I think Stutzla was playing with a Matteo and like Gaudette at
Yeah,
one point
like
tonight.
no forward line at 5-on-5 played more than 550. Like Stützle,
No.
Giroux, and Kachuk played 550, and they were pretty good. But then we had Kachuk, Greg Giroux, Pinto, Amadio, Reinhardt. Like
Hmm.
it just kind of was all over the place. They didn't really settle in on any forward lines. But I think that's, credit to Travis Green. He kind of played, his guys. I think what he basically did was he said, Cole Reinhardt, you're going to play very few
Yeah,
minutes
like
tonight.
5 minutes.
And then I'm just going to rotate my 11 forwards. And I think that's the right way to approach it. I mean, I think Reinhardt's a decent player, but I think right now with the Stabchuk playing well, Highmore playing well on your fourth line, Reinhardt's not really a fourth liner by trade. Just the way he plays, he's more skilled. Um, but so that's what he did. He rolled the lines, and it really worked, especially in that second period. Just
Yeah.
kind of whatever whoever he threw out there turned to gold, just in terms of creating chances.
Yeah. I kind of reacted to the very quick line changes going through the season and saying I was a little bit confused on it, but now I sort of get it because I mean the results are there, just first and foremost. But Also, this team kind of just gets it on the offensive side. I think the players are used to each other by now. The chemistry is there, and I think that that might bode well because if they end up in a playoff series, they might have to change the lineups quite frequently. Before we head into the second segment, give me your player of the game.
Um, I'll give it to David Perron. I
All
think
right.
I think for the most part he actually played pretty well to start the season before he left because of his daughter's illness. But he just wasn't producing, and obviously had 2 points tonight. Got the big goal to get off the schneid, and I think he's going to be a really important, valuable player for this team. And I think it's no surprise that with his return of late, that the Sens have been winning a bunch of games. I think he's just really good as that like kind of middle six guy that you can play on your second unit power play. Um, he's not really going to make any mistakes. He knows where to be, what to do, and just a stabilizing presence that this team, I think, sorely needs. And especially with Nick Cousins getting hurt and probably out for likely till the end of the regular season at the very least. I think credit to David Perron for scoring for his kids.
Yeah, Perron, hopefully he'll start to get going a little bit more now. He wasn't playing bad before, but pitching and offensively, that's going to give him some more confidence, at least going forward. Okay, before we head into the next segment, where we were talking about some of Alex's latest pieces, and some interesting ones for sure, talking directly to the owner as well as Daniel Alfredson. So, I mean, two guys who are basically at top of the ranks in the Ottawa Senators right now in many different ways. Before that, though, I just need to talk about our flagship podcast in Hyperdrive Hockey. Make sure to check it out on all platforms. It is available. It's the news source for all the biggest stories going on in the hockey world, bringing a unique style of broadcasting and commentator with a Quebecois flavor. It combines top tier hockey analysis, big stories, pop culture, and a fun atmosphere that will drive debate, make you think, and more. You can join Max, Daphne, and Kevin every Tuesday and Friday to fill on the hockey world. Make sure to check it out. It's on literally every platform. So yeah, please go check it out for us. Okay, um, let's talk about the Alfie one first,
Yeah.
because I like obviously Alfie's been interviewed before, being a
Yeah.
player and everything like that. There hasn't been a ton of availability. It seems like that I've seen through the Sens, Sens Twitter feed, the Sens YouTube page. What was it like to like have an interview with him, but sort of on a personable note, one on one? Because he's a quiet guy, I think,
hmm
but obviously super respected. And I could only imagine if I was interviewing him, man, I'd be pretty nervous because I'd be seeing this guy, uh, basically my idol, sitting right in front of my face.
Yeah, of course. I grew up a Sens fan, so obviously pretty cool to meet him. I'd been around him before, and
hmm
uh, but funnily enough, I used to be a tennis pro, kind of at the Rideau Tennis Club here in
Nice.
Ottawa, and Alfie would always play with my like the head pro there, so I'd always see him in the locker room like all the time. And I would never really kind of say hi to him or anything because I knew he was quiet, and I don't know. I would never want to be bugged if I was just going to the gym or going to play tennis
Yeah.
by a fan or anything. So I kind of told him, that I knew who he was playing with. So I actually texted the head pro and said that I had talked to him and stuff, and they play every Friday or something. So, but yeah, it was really cool. I think the reason why he's so beloved, obviously, he's the best player in franchise history, played here forever, was the captain for forever, but is just how respectful he is, how kind. He's obviously not a big personality. He's not a huge talker, but he just gets it. And like from a journalistic standpoint, he knows kind of if you ask a question, he'll give you a good answer. He'll
hmm
try his best to kind of not you're not like pulling teeth to try to get him to say something. So he really got it, and credit. I think the reason why I think that story, not to toot my own horns too much, but I think the reason why that story what's good was because it's clear, like if you talk to any of the players and you bring Alfie, they're up, they just start to brim with, enthusiasm and smile. Like talking to Drake Batherson about him, and at practice they're always working on their shot together, playing keep away, and the guys just love to be around him. And you can see him all the time at practice, like taking a Josh Norris and say, "Hey, this is how I want you to," like just offensive, like skills wise, like this
Yeah.
is how you, this is where to be on a power play, X, Y, and Z, right? So. I think the players really like him, and when you're a Hall of Famer, guys are gonna listen to you a little bit more than
Yeah.
me.
Of course.
If I was the assistant coach, not that I'd ever be that, but my point being is that there's that gravitas that comes with being a Hall of Famer, being the face of the franchise, and I think people listen, and he still has the skills. Like I see him every day at practice. He's doing like crossbar challenges.
Oh my
He's eating
goodness.
out guys. It's just he took a shift earlier this year on when a
I
couple
remember
guys got
that.
injured. He was on the right wing, taking some line shifts. So he still has it. Obviously, he's just a bit older in his 50s now, and he said he could probably play on the power play and still be okay, but he definitely couldn't play a game or anything like that.
Yeah. And so you talked to Stutzla and it was Norris, right? Or Norris
Batherson.
Batherson. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Two of, like probably the two most skilled guys on the team. When you're talking to them too, right? I think one thing that hockey players really like to do is talk about other people on their
Yeah.
team. A lot of the time, like they don't really want to talk about themselves that much. That's sort of just their nature. But when they can have a chance to talk about a guy who's sort of idolized, I know Stutzla and Batherson probably didn't grow up as Sens fans, but when they get a chance to talk about a guy who is like a legend in Ottawa, um, like what was their when you go up to them and stuff and you're talking to them one on one, like what are you reading when Batherson and Stutzer are talking about Alfie? Because I would imagine their face might just light up with a lot of positive, a lot of
Yeah.
positive reactions.
Yeah, I mean, I think and you can read what they said, and how much admiration and how much kind of excitement they have for him. But I think, as you said, they kind of glow up
Mm-hmm.
talking about him. They just get excited, and I think it's because he's fun to be around. He has a quite serious demeanor, but he can be pretty. He can crack jokes
I could
and.
see it.
And I think, when he's around the players, like they know he's a player that, that's a big thing for NHLers. Like if Joe Schmo is coaching and you didn't play in the league, it takes a little bit for you to kind of earn the respect of players. But when you're Wayne Gretzky or Daniel Alfredson or whoever, but like just one of the best players of all time, then people kind of listen and they want to learn and they're eager to be around you. So I think that's what you got from Stützle, from Batherson, and I think it's a testament to like the new ownership. I mean, just one of the first things they did was they brought Daniel Alfredson back in the fold. They have made him an assistant coach, and he's talked about how he's still rookie, and that's true. But he joked about how it's like he's putting video sessions together, and he's like, I want it to be really good, but I also don't want to kind of like I have to make it like bite size
Yeah.
amount of information
Mm-hmm.
because they have five other meetings that day, and if I go for 30 minutes in too much detail, they'll their brains will explode like anyone else's. So yeah, I think just overall, he's been a really good addition to the franchise just to be around the team. But I think it was good to kind of almost get an update on like how his coaching life is going. And I think the story kind of gives a good sense of that.
I think they have him in a good spot too, in terms of the depth chart of the coaching organization. I don't know, like maybe one day he wants to become a head coach, but he doesn't strike me as that guy that is thinking about that right now. I think he's just new to the process, but when you have that resume and you're tied to the local market here, I think overall that Alfie's going to provide a lot of great things for a lot of the players. As primarily maybe a skills coach, but I like how he's running the power play as well. Um, let's move on to your next piece on talking to the owner.
Mhm.
Because of course, I mean, all right, the Quebec thing, that's their one big bluff that they've done. Their biggest mistake. I don't think they were planning on trying to like.
No,
It's such a weird position to be in because it. I woke up to this news. I'm like, how did this happen? Because I know that I trust everyone in the organization, and I trust Ann Lauer. And it was, it gave me like a little bit of PTSD just going
yeah,
back to the old days, of course. But I like how they just owned up to it and they said, "Oh, yeah, we screwed up." I like having Ian Mendez in this position is perfect for the clarity of this organization overall because he's going to say, okay, this is going to happen. We screwed up. We're going to send Cyril Leader, the CEO, on TSN 1200 right now. And then Michael Andlauer steps up and owns up to it. Like he's the top guy, right?
yeah.
And so, yeah, like when you're talking to him, what are the vibes that you're getting from him?
Yeah, I mean,
Start
like
with that.
he took so essentially like Andlauer decided he wanted to kind of talk to like an assembled group of media,
Mm-hmm.
but just not a press conference. I think just to kind of make it not too big, but get the message out, which I
Sure.
think was probably the right decision by Ian.
Yep.
Um, but I think he's a very gregarious guy. He's very likable. Like if you're around him for
Oh man, yeah.
5 minutes, you'll like him. He likes to talk, but in a good way. Like he'll shake your hand. He'll really say, hi, how's it going? Like he's not dismissive. I haven't met other billionaires, but I don't imagine most of them are like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think, he talked about how he didn't really understand, like he didn't know that, at one point a couple years ago it was rumored that the Sens would play a couple games in Quebec City. He said like he didn't realize how much PTSD in a sense that this, the fan base had from the past and from, being threatened to move by, Eugene Melnick and everything. And, what was interesting, you kind of talked about wanting to, in a sense, change, like not being just like that little brother, like have some
Mm-hmm.
confidence as a franchise. And I think to some degree, I agree. Like, I think the fans in Ottawa are, I know a bunch of them. I get, I think I get the pulse of the team to some degree, but
For sure.
I think it's good to be like, no, like they, like, for example, right now they're close to catching up on the Leafs, right? And, it shouldn't always be about the Leafs. It should be the Sens are really good and they might be as good as the Leafs, but not almost having that little brother kind of complex with the Leafs. And he talked about how they're putting, they're investing in Gatineau. I think, what he said about, if we can play games in Sweden in Gatineau, his explanation to us was essentially, I was asked, I was just kind of putting it out there. I didn't really think about it. I don't know if that's true or not, but he explained that the reason why they unveiled the games for Quebec City was because Quebec City wanted to kind of sell tickets
Mm-hmm.
beforehand. He didn't have any plans on playing games in Quebec City for the regular season. Like it wasn't a strategic thing. And he said full stop, no, we don't really plan to play regular season games in Quebec City now after what happened. And he calls the obviously the Spartacat malfunction or mistake with having an Nordiques jersey. Like it wasn't, he said it wasn't his idea, which I believe. I don't think, the owner is deciding what
Mm-hmm.
Spartacat does, right? Um, and, said it was a mistake and we won't, do that again. And I think they just learned, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think there was a big learning lesson. And, in my article, I kind of say it's like how you, in a sense, he admitted the fault, which I don't think a lot of owners would do.
No,
He
definitely not.
tried to rectify it by talking to us by, confirming like we're not gonna have Spartacat wear a Nordique jersey. We're not gonna, push for a game in Quebec City. We understand now, like all these things. Um, and I think time will tell if they are learning, if they keep making mistakes, and hey, maybe we question if we should trust them, as a fan base, I guess, in a sense. Um, but overall, I think he did the right thing after making a couple blunders, and we'll see how it goes from there. But when he took over, I wasn't covering the team. I was still technically a fan,
Hmm.
and I think if I put my I'm not a fan anymore, but like thinking from a fan's perspective, um, this ownership group behind the scenes, I can tell even from this year to last, putting way more money into the team. They're a cap team.
Absolutely.
They're winning now because they're getting guys like David Perron
Yes.
to come to the team. So I think the ownership, sure, let's see. Maybe the owner talks too much. I think maybe he should maybe quiet it down. Maybe not, talk about tampering and
Hmm.
stuff like that. But he said it to us like that's in his nature. He's gonna be up
Yeah.
front. He's gonna talk. Maybe he talks too much, he said, but I'm fully invested in the team and trying to get something done. So I think overall, it was a good way to try to end it. And now let's see
Hmm.
if we ever think back in a couple years and be like, you remember that crazy Spartacat fiasco?
Yeah. The
Or do we
soft
think,
tampering
oh,
too.
there's a bunch of, yeah. So that's kind of my monologue.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I could only imagine, just as a fan right now, I feel very secure with this ownership. It took a little while, obviously, but the wait was worth it to figure out who was going to be the next owner of the Ottawa Senators. And I could only imagine now with Ian Mendez right there, who is being everywhere in the Ottawa community. He has done radio, he has done TV, he has done writing, he has done every media source you can think of. And now he's the VP of communications for the Ottawa Senators. That's A plus hiring right there. That when
Yeah.
something bad like this does happen, you have Ian to turn to.
And like even in the discussion, like he said, in the past, like I think one of our my colleagues said, in the past we'd never even be able to have a kind of dialogue,
Nope.
right? It was just blaming us, and
Yep.
I'm not saying media is perfect. I make mistakes, we all make mistakes,
Hmm.
but I think just not having a combative relationship with fans, with media, is the right way to go. Doesn't mean there's sometimes you'll have a miscommunication or make a blunder like the Spartacat fiasco, and in a sense, a little bit of the Quebec City messaging, sure. But I think the way he handled it for the most part about owning up to it by making it a mistake, by not blaming the fans like Eugene Melnick would many times,
Hmm.
I think that's the right way to do it. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with the arena. I still think there's multiple pathways that will incur um, down that route.
Yeah.
I'm not as plugged in as other people. I'm not really plugged in on that as just getting to
It's
the
so
beat. I
far
don't,
away. It is so
yeah,
far away at this
but
point.
I do think that's going to be an interesting. I think that's almost the next litmus test. But do I think there's going to be a new arena in Ottawa? Yeah. But he reaffirmed like if we don't get a deal done, we have a great rink in Canada and we'll stay here.
Mhm.
I think if all things go well, and if he could have his way, he'd have a new arena in LeBreton or somewhere downtown.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that's the right approach. You don't necessarily need one, but I think it would be the best course of action, and we'll see how that develops. But I think overall, he's spending on the team. He's trying to understand where fans are coming from.
Mhm.
He's invested in the team, and overall, I think he's had some hurdles, um, but he's been a good owner.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we head into the next segment, I just want to mention that we have a Patreon available. If you would like to support us, please head to our website as well as we have merch available for all Canadian teams here on Game Over. We have mugs, we have t shirts, hoodies. Please go check it out if you have an opportunity as we head into our final segment. Just continuing on that conversation though, with the rink, it's nice to not like talk about the rink constantly. It always seems like it's sort of it's summer it's a summer topic, right? But when the team's winning, I don't care about the rink really, man. I'll drive you know what? Me living in Ottawa South, I will drive 30, 40 minutes to go see a winning hockey team. Back in 2018, 2019, I was not going to do that. They basically had to throw out $10 tickets to go see Ottawa against Anaheim. I remember I went to one of those games. This
I
is a
love it.
winning team, and people will want to go. Like you saw the other night, you were probably in attendance for that game against Minnesota. That crowd was bumping. Um, there's a
Yeah,
lot to
it was.
like.
Yeah. No, no, it's great. And like that's the kind of game, a Saturday night against Minnesota, which isn't a big draw. That last year you might have 13,000 where the
Yep.
Sens were at this point, and now it's a sellout, right? And people might forget or remember, when Chikrin came to Ottawa,
Remember that game?
and obviously that didn't work out, but they beat Columbus on that night and inched really close to a playoff spot, and like that crowd was electric. And I
Yep.
think, in a sense, we're talking about PTSD with regards to like ownership and everything, and,
Hmm.
and the Quebec City fiasco. I think, in a sense, with this team this year, with attendance, it hasn't been great. It hasn't been awful, but it hasn't been great. I think it's because people are like, well, they had the bad start to the year, and then they're kind of winning, and then Allmark gets hurt, they lose a couple, and they're kind of been in and out of a playoff spot. And even now, it's not secured. But I think if they keep playing this way, and let's say by mid-March or even the trade deadline, whenever, this team is pretty secured in a playoff spot, which I think is probably the likeliest outcome of just the way this team looks right now.
Likely.
Then, I think the building's gonna you're gonna have like packed houses for Columbus. The players love it. There's a reason why Ridley Gregg, you know, took that slap shot because he didn't like having all
Hmm.
the Leafs players or Leafs fans, and you know, he didn't verbalize this, but I'm pretty sure that's why. And I'm sure most of the Sens players don't like having Habs fans or Leafs fans take over. They want Sens fans, right?
Hmm.
And this building can get really great when the team's good, right? And this team is becoming good, and I think it's a shame that they don't play a game for another month, but almost regardless, it's gonna be a couple big games at home, and they finish off the season at home, which is another great aspect of this team right now, is that actually, like, in a sense, their schedule really eases up, especially after this week.
Yeah.
They don't travel that much. They don't. I think they have one more back to back after tomorrow night, and they finish the season basically all at home.
Yeah.
So it's a everything's looking really up for this team.
Yeah, when you have a record of 29, 20, and 4, you will take it any day of the week. They also, with this win tonight, they bump up to 13, 13, and 2. So that's awesome that this team is 500 on the road and they play
But
like,
look at their home record.
yeah, well, their home record's great, right? We know that they have the talent, and when you have the home ice advantage, you can kind of play the offensive game a little bit more and get the juices flowing. And I mean, so like if we go back to the last time you came on the show here, this was 2 months ago against Anaheim. The Sens were just sort of getting out of the funk, and then that's when they started that 6 game win streak, which they could do again tomorrow. They could have another 6 game win streak. Um, Since then, the Sens, I wrote it down here, they are 19, 8, and 2. So, uh, like that's awesome. Their defense has really tightened up. They're like we kind of touched on this earlier in the segment, but it feels like every time one guy might make a little bit of a mistake, there's just another guy there that's there to back him up. And when you look at the defensive zone coverage, they're collapsing. It's all 5 guys, and then when they push for offense, they kind of just push up together. Um, and they pick their chances, and there's no cheating. You're looking at Brady helping out on the defensive side of the puck. Brady was always kind of just had one role, and that was okay, kind of hang out at the blue line, and see if you can just power towards the net. With Timmy, it was like, okay, see if you can pick off a pass and then go in with speed and with your skill and take over the game that way. This time around, these two players, I'm just using them as an example. They are coming basic like Brady's going to the hash marks in the defensive zone. Timmy is going below the goal line every single shift, it seems like, and the fact that he's just turned 23, um, that's what this core has bought into, and you're seeing it now. And when you show the results and you're not frustrated consistently like they've been in the past 5 years, it's like a drug basically. The women, and they know how to do it now. There's no way they're going to be going back, unless every team has a funk. But I trust this team, man, and it's so weird to say that.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, like even when they were struggling to begin the year, if you looked at their underlying metrics, it wouldn't have suggested that they'd be, at 1.8, 11 and 1 in the first 20 games. And then, when they won the 6 games in a row, they were playing decent hockey. I think Allmark was really helping them out, but they were
Yeah.
playing well enough. But, they're learning how to win, right? And, it's tough when a team is always winning. You're like, well, is it becoming a habit? And you want to ask Travis Green that, and he's going to
Yeah.
give you the similar
Not a
answer, or
lot.
Sim Stützle or whoever. But I think that's what you're seeing, right? They go down 1-0. They probably were the better team tonight. They get a quick goal, well, two quick goals, and they're back up. And they give up a power play goal. They're resilient. They don't bend, or they don't break. They just bend.
Yep.
Resilient, and they played a really good hockey game. They were full marks to win the game, but in the past, they'd play a really good game and the goaltending would let them down,
Yep.
or they'd shoot themselves in the foot, or they'd have a bad 2-minute stretch, right? And they had that against Washington recently, but they overcame it, and they won in overtime. And they had chances, or Washington had chances to win that game in regulation, and Kachuk made a nice play, and the team played well enough defensively in front of Forsberg to get it to overtime, and then obviously we know what happened. But overall, I think this team's learning how to win, and it's funny. In the past, it felt like they had the biggest losers mentality, and now it
Mm-hmm.
feels like the opposite. And look at Boston for years. Look at other teams that maybe punched above their weight, and now at the very least, in my opinion, they're punching at their weight. I think they should be a top three, like they should be a playoff team
They should be.
on paper, and they're doing that, and full credit to them.
As of last night, they were at 81% chance of making the playoffs. That has to be going up now. The Sens will be back tomorrow as they fly into Tampa tonight, as that will be first of two back-to-backs. And so, yeah, we'll be back tomorrow here on Game Over. Alex, thanks for joining the cast tonight. I know it's kind of, I keep forgetting that I'm in Pacific time. So I
Okay.
appreciate you jumping on here, man. Sens win 5-2. That makes it 5 wins in a row. And they'll be back tomorrow. Things are looking very good. Thank you very much for tuning in to Game Over, everyone, and have a good night.